Tiffany Shepis, and you're listening to the Movie Rate Show.
It's time for the movie raid, and tonight's victim is actress Tiffany Shepis, that played in many films such as Zombies, such as Ted Bundy, such as Sharknado 2, and amongst others. Hello.
Hi, how are ya?
I'm trying to stay warm like usual.
Yeah, we are past Halloween, but we were moving into Christmas. You've been in the crazy cold and some awesome Christmas horror movies.
Yeah, no, I heard that they're making like an Elf's Christmas horror film, and I actually want to see that.
I'll bet they are. I'm sure it'll be pretty creepy.
I got a feeling that at some point they're going to meet up with Chucky from Child's Play at some point.
That would be great.
I would love to see that. Like,
I would 100% watch that.
I want to see like a triple match, you know, Child's Play. I want to see Puppet Master, and I want to see these guys go in action right now.
Oh, there you go. You know, the elf has Christmas magic, so that could kind of throw a wrench in the whole thing. It's almost like, you know, Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like he's kind of all mystical powerful, and I think an elf would have that, and I think he might just fuck up Chucky.
All right, not if Leprechaun happened to come in place.
That is true. Leprechaun, you know, he had many movies and stayed alive. So
what's going on? We got any new projects going on, or anything that we just released this year or last year or so forth that we can check out?
Yeah, we had two that came out this year, kind of right back to back. One called Killer Kate, where I play one of bad guys. It's essentially a group of girls. They're going to have a bachelor party, blah blah blah, and some group of bad people don't want them to have a good time, and I'm part of that group. And we tried to kill Kate. It was directed by a newcomer guy named Elliot Feld, and he did a great job. And it had like a minor theatrical release here in LA, and it's a cool, fun kind of throwback slasher. And then we did another one called Texas Cotton, which isn't quite a genre movie at all, but it stars a lot of genre actors like myself and Lou Temple. Temple's been in everything. Jason Douglas and George Hardy, who starred in Troll 2, who actually is super, super, super good in this movie. And it's sort of like a Fargo-esque kind of black dark comedy, but it's really great, and that did a theatrical run as well, and I think you can get now like on Amazon Prime or something.
Very nice. And we actually have a fan submitted question for you.
Oh, good.
All right, and it is Jeremy Brown, and he asks, now I hope I got this right, you and Linnea are true Scream queens. Is there any particular franchise you've always wished to be a part of that you want a chance to be in?
Oh, that's tough, because there's a lot of franchises, because I think Linnea is awesome as well. There's tons of franchises that would have been great to be a part of. Hellraiser would have been badass to be a son of ice. I would have loved to have been in any of the Child's Plays. I was a huge fan of Night of growing up, but I did get a chance to play a small part in the remake, so that kind of wish has been fulfilled. But really, any of like the big franchisable stuff, like Rob Zombie, who hasn't really done like the franchise. I mean, did a franchise film, which is Halloween, but like hasn't had like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his own movies. I'd love to see Rob Zombie. I mean, so the kind of endless question. I could keep going.
Well, also, I could see you being a part of Rob Zombie's Salem.
Hell yeah.
When it comes to performing a character, do you think it's best not to be aware of your actions in the scene?
No, I think you have to be aware of your actions in the scene. I think if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what your character's doing, you're going to be completely lost. I think with scene partner, like, the more you know about what's going on, the more real you can play it. The few times, and pretty much the only times I get nervous is when, like, I'm not prepared. And that means that I don't know where the character's coming from. I don't know what happened in this scene beforehand. And that's generally on me, or occasionally it's on the director or writer that just kind of hasn't broken it down for us in the script of the scene, right? But, I mean, I think you have to know as much as possible in order to make the character come to life.
Yeah, but some people have their own method of acting as well. I mean, they can just go with it with whatever the character is, and they play the character, and then just go with it without actually really thinking, but then still pull it off. And it's a gamble as well. But I mean, if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, some people rather be more in depth and to really get that character and to see it play out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, everybody's going to have their own thing, right? I mean, like, there's method actors that kind of live in that character, and that's how they process it. Me, that's crazy to me. Like, that seems, what are you going to do if you play a serial killer? Like, go out and kill people? To me, that process doesn't work or sit right with me. Like, I prefer just to kind of show up and know your character, know the backstory, know as much as you can in the moment, but then when you leave set, you turn it off.
Yeah, that's usually the hard thing. I mean, in horror, that genre, I mean, it can be fun, but at the same time, you got to be serious too. I mean, because for you, how do you like reformulate, especially an existing horror method? It's like we know what's going to happen, you know, the predictable thing, you know, she's coming out of the closet, you know, But when you're playing a role, especially new age horror films, how do you reformulate an old formula?
I mean, I don't know if you can. I think the thing is, like, none of those gags are ever going to be new, right? And so if you're a seasoned horror fan, you're already going to be able to call these shots before they come. You're going to call them a mile away. So I think the most important thing is just to play a character that people like. Either that people like and you want to root for, or people hate enough that you get excited when they die. Because the tricks and the gags and, like, you know, I'm just going to go down the stairs and knock you kill thing, like, that's not going to work. You know, you're very rarely going to scare, like, the seasoned horror pro anymore, right? Like, they've seen everything. So I think it's just to make that character as fun or as crazy or as scary, whatever they're supposed to be, as believable as possible. When they do the shit that you already know that's coming, it's forgivable.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with people like hating the character, because in a way, you know, you're almost supporting that character, because, you know, in a way, you as an actor are actually doing your job. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. This isn't horror based related, but the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you know, the ditzy daughter. In reality, that actress kept getting people coming up to her and saying, "I hated you." But that was the point. I mean, you know, she was an annoying type of character. That was the purpose of that. I mean, it's like when
sure.
know?
No, yeah. If you can evoke that kind of emotion out of people on TV or film, like, you've done a good job. Like, if you can make people hate you, you've done a great job. Right? Yeah. Bottom line, like, that's great. Playing a good villain is, like, it's super hard to do. And then there's that fine line of, like, you want the audience to love you, you also want the audience to hate you just enough, you know?
Do you think the horror genre is losing a little bit with its actual value, like toward the actual horror community, with all these new age horror films? Really not. They're just going one direction for the most part. Like, you know exactly where it's going, the common and more predictable place.
You know, I don't know. I don't think that necessarily, like, horror's all going in one direction. I mean, shit, like, there's been some really, like, amazing, very cool, and very different horror movies that have come out in the last couple of years. The Witch being one, Don't Breathe being another, like, you know, there's just been some really interesting stuff. A Quiet Place, like, holy shit, like, that movie blew me away and, like, actually had me on the edge of my seat. Even though you kind of, like, as a horror fan can predict some of the stuff that might happen, still, the acting, the quality. I mean, the fact that, like, horror films are getting these bigger budgets now, like, it's pretty cool to see. So I don't necessarily think things are going in one direction. I think it's the biggest platform we've ever had to go in any direction for these movies.
Yeah, and what do you throw out the fact that, like, the horror is back in? It's almost like a fad. It comes in, it comes out, it comes in, it comes out again. And because when you see a string of horror films out, and then you'll see nothing but, let's say, action related or hero related or some drama, and then horror just fades away again, and then comes back again another decade.
Yeah, I don't know how any of these trends work, man. Like, you really have got me, because for years, like, people would tell me, like, oh man, like, I have this great script, and it's like another zombie script, and da-da-da-da, and I was like, oh my god, zombies are still played out, don't even try that. And then next thing you know, we get The Walking Dead, biggest hit show on television, right? Like, same thing with things like vampires. I'm like, wow, vampires, nobody wants to see vampires right now, they're totally played out. And then fucking Vampire Diaries, right? Like, so I am behind on the trends, like, either behind or way ahead of my time, I don't know, but, like, I could never call it. Just when I think things have kind of run their course, then there's, like, some giant hit TV show about that said thing. So I am 100% the worst person to ask about why things come in and out of fads. You know, I think horror movies never really went away. There just wasn't any money being thrown at them to promote them and put them out there. So, like, all of us as kids, like, would have to just go to the video store and get them, right? And then in, like, the 90s and 2000s, like, you know, kind of went away as far as, like, the billboards and things like that. And, you know, with the age of internet, like, you would find stuff on your own, like podcasts like this, or, you know, certain websites, you know. So I don't know, like, I feel like it's never left, because, like, I'm so immersed in the genre. Like, I'm always at a convention, and I'm always at a film festival, and there's so many genre fans there, and they've never left. So I think it's just the promotional side of it that kind of goes in flux. Like, sometimes we see lots of it, and sometimes we don't, but it's always there.
But it's interesting to see that the support, in terms of financial-wise, has actually significantly changed since then. I mean, for a while, like, horror films were kind of like in the back burner compared to, like I mentioned, you get your fantasy genre and stuff like that, and they're releasing this first, and then we'll release something from, a couple of films from horror, and then, like, that spurns out. But now you see these films going on Netflix, like you mentioned, you see them going digital, you see older films way back in the 80s and before then are finally being released on Blu-ray and stuff, because it's really interesting to see that now people are finally wanting to see these films rather than just get, your latest, new Exorcist film.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely, like, a big resurgence, the kind of nostalgic, and you just look at, like, Stranger Things. Like, people are hungry for the nostalgia as they get older, right? And it's like, oh, I want to remember how I felt watching these movies when I was a kid. Oh, wow, like, I haven't seen that since, 1984. Holy shit, Scream Factory's putting it out on Blu-ray. Like, I think it's like any kind of pop culture thing. Like, it needs to take a certain amount of time before it becomes culty. And then when it becomes culty, it's not just old, it's now cool and revived. And the fact that that's happening is awesome. The fact that the support is there, like you were saying, like the money being like thrown behind these movies where it used to just go to like family films or fantasy films or action films. I think it's really just kind of Hollywood and these big businesses finally realizing, oh wow, there is a huge market for this. If we put this movie out over the weekend, it's going to be the biggest blockbuster we've had. It's just a numbers game. Like if that happened for comedy shot in black and white, they would do the same thing. It's just what's making money at the moment. And what I think it is that many, many years ago, a family had to go see a movie together, right? It was like no one had the money to go see 4 or 5 different films. They wanted to go to a movie, they were going to go see it once every other month or whatever, and they go as a family. And what would you go see as a family is but a family. Now, with so many different platforms like Netflix or On Demand or, watching a movie through Apple or Amazon, like, you don't have to watch shit together anymore. Like, it's way easy and affordable to everybody pick something that they want to watch in their house and watch it on their own if they have to, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot more opportunities as well, like in terms of, you got your Kickstarter stuff going on, like they can get backed up by other people, can actually donate money to these people, whether it's independent film or even a big budget film that they're just trying to get some help to actually release to other distribution. You don't have to go to Hollywood anymore.
Yeah, no, and that's what's pretty cool is the fan interaction with these films where, you had to live in Hollywood or New York and you had to know somebody in order to make a movie. Now, you can make a movie on your fucking phone. Make a movie on your phone. But even if you didn't want to make one yourself, you could be involved by Kickstarter, by Indiegogo, by just conversing with the creators of shows via Twitter. Like, almost every television show and movie that comes out now does live Twitter events where they'll talk to the fans, they'll answer questions. Like, never before has it been more of a thing where you could, as a fan, really, truly be involved and be of service in helping these things get another season or helping these projects get awareness. So I think that really makes a difference when you, as a consumer, right, like you as the movie watcher, feels like they have a say in the fate of this project, because you really do.
Yeah, they're not the viewer, they're the entrepreneur now.
Yeah. No, and that's crazy cool. Like, we've never had that before, and I think that's what made it such a game changer. Projects that maybe never could have been made because of content or because of, the guy thought because he lived in Shakopee, Minnesota, he couldn't make a movie, or because he didn't have any actors. Now we're able to go online, and they're able to find crew, and they're able to find money, and they're able to find services that before this were completely just, it was like a mystical thing.
Yeah, you don't have to go to just like one studio or bounce from one studio to another and just hopefully you'll get a response from these guys, especially like the larger companies, to see if they'll even consider looking at your script or your concept or whatever, so see if they'll make any money off of it.
Sure.
But when it comes to completing an acting job and seeing that payment, whether it's big or small, do you think this can actually be a more helpful motivation for an actor on a more of a personal level?
No, mean, like, I've done movies, for next to nothing, literally, and, have done movies that have paid very well. And there's really not much of a difference in between on any of them. I mean, at least there shouldn't be for you as an actor. Like, you shouldn't sign on to it. Like, I mean, certainly some people go, I want to make movies because I want to be famous or rich, right? I mean, everybody just wants to be rich. That's just a given, right? But, in order to be an actor and to be somewhat successful at it, you have to kind of be in it for the work. You have to be in it for playing characters. And oftentimes the better characters come with a really, really, really low paycheck.
Yeah, just look at the music scene. I think that the same way too with the music scene and the film industry. I mean, it's a little bit similar because look at all these bands. They are touring, doing gig after gig after gig, and sometimes they only make $100 a night. Yeah,
there's movies that I love that I've made. Like, here's for instance, The Violent Kind. Violent Kind is one of my favorite movies that I ever made, and it had one of the smallest budgets, and which means we all got paid very, very little. Nobody got rich on that at all. Yet it was one of my favorite movies ever made. It was my favorite bad guy to play, and that movie played Sundance and did really, really well. It was produced by the guys who produced Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and Rob Zombie's Halloween. Like, so it was cool, huge backers. It just still happened to have a tiny budget. And so if you were just to kind of play off of, oh wow, well this movie's going to pay this and this movie's going to pay that, I'm going to go for the one with the highest paycheck, I would have only made really shitty movies.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when it comes to reflecting the acting, because the motivation to do a job, let's say the job is, $2,000, right? Just out of nowhere, right? And, they're like all pumped up and excited to do the part, and then they'll, do well. And then let's say the next job is only $500, and then they're like, oh, all right. And then they don't put their best effort into playing that character.
Well, that's silly. I mean, it's a stupid thing to do. No matter what you do in life, like, you should do a good job, right? I mean, especially as being an actor, it's your face up there. No one's ever going to judge the rest of it. They're just going to go, oh, wow, Tiffany was terrible in this, or so-and-so's acting was garbage, or wow, they phoned it in. It really only reflects on you. So, I mean, I would hope that the payment isn't a reflection on it. Although sometimes you just can't take a job because it doesn't pay, because, potentially you'll lose money doing it, right? But I think if you take on a job, it should definitely not reflect the work.
Yeah, I mean, recognition is important for any artist, whether you're actor or musician, but you have to put all this work, effort, time it could take a couple years. It could take within months, depending on where the success you're trying to get for here. It's all about and motivation as well. It's just the fact that when it comes to the money aspect of things and all this stuff around you, could easily mess you up in terms of other jobs. I mean, there's so much involved here. Are you going to be a better actor when it comes to this? Are you going to be are you going to second guess yourself because maybe you're not feeling comfortable with how you act and all this stuff going involved?
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot of factors that go into everything, and and sometimes everything's out of your control. Like, you can show up as an actor and do the best job ever, and the way it's edited or the way they shot it, like maybe all of your best takes are completely out of focus and unusable, and then they're left using the garbage takes, right? So, I mean, there's sometimes the things just completely and totally out of your control, which is why that you do hope, aside from the money, that when you do sign on to projects, that you can sign on to one where hopefully people know what they're doing and at least your best work can be showcased.
Like I said, choices and opportunities are much better now compared to the old days, compared to 2000s and so forth.
Yes and no. I mean, there's certainly more opportunities out there, but there's also more competition. Where if you wanted to be, let's say, an actor or a filmmaker before, you had one option. It was you had to have enough money or enough money to get you by to come to Los Angeles or New York. The competition was just less. There were less people trying to get the same jobs. Now, it's accessible and it's awesome, but it's accessible for anyone, like we're just talking about, to be able to submit their stuff online, to be able to take web seminars, to be able to host their own YouTube channel in order to get seen. It's just kind of opened the gates to the entire world, not just Los Angeles, or not just the country even. The whole world can go after your same part.
Go ahead and plug in anything that you would like to promote, anything check out, again, anything that might be released on DVD or even websites and so forth.
Really just Texas Cotton. Texas Cotton and Killer Kate came out this year. They're super, super fun. Both of them I had a really, really great time shooting. And then lots of stuff that's out now, just like in general. Like Tales of Halloween has made like a new Netflix comeback. Like people keep telling me, it keeps popping up in their queue everywhere. And we have Starlight. Oh, Starlight's coming out next year. Starlight made that with the same guys who made The Violent Kind, which is the Butcher Brothers, or Mitch Altieri anyway. And The Night Watchman for them. And this one's called Starlight, and it's super weird. I'm in it with Scott Taylor Thompson and a bunch of young newcomers. And it's somewhat of a demonic possession movie, I think I'm allowed to say. And it's a joke, but I think I'm going to love it.
And there you have it, everybody. That is Tiffany Shepis.